Live.
Well, good morning. How are you two doing? You doing all right?
Doing good. You know, a little technical difficulties this morning, but no big deal.
Yeah. Well, you got to feed the squirrels, bro. You got to feed them. You got to give them something, snacks, something. So I guess this is, what is this? Number 8, Will? Number 2? What is it? Number 8.
Ocho.
Number 8. So Security Matters with the Coffee Squad. What do? We talk about coffee because we know Jake loves coffee. And honestly, we care about him that much. We also know he likes pinkies up. Yep, look at that right there. Oh, we got a little bit of Winklers. I appreciate that. So to kind of start that off, Jake, what are you drinking this morning? What do you got in there, man? Is that a Gatorade?
It is. It's an herbal tea that my wife made. So,
what kind of herbal tea, man?
I don't even know. It's like Benghazi spice, something like that. Who knows? Bengal spice.
Wowie.
Yeah.
I was about to take that the wrong direction there for a second. It's kind of like it's a Viagra blend is basically what you're telling me. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, what are you drinking, buddy?
I am drinking a medium roast Guatemalan from a local bakery.
Yeah, that's first off, I don't appreciate that. I need you to give a little bit more details because usually you're the one that takes 10 minutes to understand what you're drinking.
Yeah, it wasn't like fresh pressed, organic,
regular
naturally
drip.
Roasted, smoked
it's all
for this amount of
organic.
hours.
He said smoked. I've got a smoked Colombian dark roast.
You're probably drinking calf.
Pinky's up, Ray.
Actually, I put water in there this morning. I already had like 3 cups because we are starting a little bit late today, and it's my own fault for being late. But sometimes it happens. Okay, so those listening, it happens. Don't judge me. It's for me to judge you. You don't judge me. So this week's going to be a good week. We don't have a guest. I know you guys are used to having somebody on here that we can talk smack to, but unfortunately, I think everybody's listened to the podcast and now they're scared to come on. But the reality is next week, I think we've got a Mike on next week. Is that correct, Will?
Yes.
So Mike's another really great guy, just transitioned out of the military and is now security guy by trade. So it's going to be great to kind of talk to him. And then now he's trying to find his path. He's looking for kind of his next adventure in life. So we're looking forward to having him next week. And this week we're going to talk about home security. I think each of us are going to have a unique kind of flavor of this. Most security professionals do not spend a lot of time in home security, believe it or not. They spend a lot of time in what I would call the corporate security space. So they're really good at understanding, risk, threats, and vulnerabilities, and then what the asset is. But people in general, sometimes you just forget to think about your own house, think about your own family. That's not everybody, but that's a lot. We learned last week from Dave. Dave's a good example of somebody that is worried about, his family and kind of what's going on. So this is going to be a good conversation this week. And there is a quiz at the end. So if you're listening, be prepared because we're definitely going to do that. But to start it off, first question I got for you, Jake, what kind of security system do you have in your house? Or do you even have one?
So I do, and I only got it because we put a pool in last year, and I have 3 little ones, oldest being 7, youngest being almost 3, and we didn't really get it for the security piece. We got it mainly for the chimes, letting us know when the doors and the windows are open.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah, so I use Simply Safe. It's kind of a set it up, do it yourself. And it's pretty cheap. I think it ranges from $14.99 a month to $24.99 a month, depending on if you want like basic level or the advanced level. I can tell you when I was gone, my wife got this funny feeling on one of my travels. So she set the alarm system and she forgot the password and she left the dog outside at night, opened the door. I'm talking to her and all of a sudden it's like 10 o'clock at night. Man, the thing's going crazy. I don't remember the password, so I'm getting calls now from Simply Safe. She can't. She gets the call from Simply Safe. She doesn't remember the safe word password, and I would say within 5 minutes, the police were at the front door. So I'm super happy with it. Super happy with the response time. Again, I never use it as an alarm system. Really, my garage doors and my front doors are usually open even at night. So.
That's good to say as a security guy. That's perfect.
I'm being honest here, so just don't tell them where I live, Ray, and we're good.
Yeah, well, I think there's lots of different systems that we're going to talk, and again, I got to reiterate, most security folks do not think about their own private residence. Like it's just, it's just something that you will see. I think, we see it a lot based off the customers that we have. And again, you're seeing it here with Jake. I mean, Jake is obviously very illustrious in this career field, understands it very well. And even thinking Simply Safe is a good system. It's a great system, but the way he's using it is not the way that it was intended, but it works the way that he wants it to work. So understand that you look, and I know where Jake lives. It's definitely a very good area, meaning it's not, one that has a lot of crime. There is crime there, but again, if you do your risk, kind of your assessment of that location, he's okay. Like it's not something he's going to, have to worry about. If you're in a location that maybe is not as good as that, it's something that you want to think about to make sure that you're putting in the right system and that you have the right response. And Jake hit that here. To me, probably the most important thing is that if he had to turn it on, he had to use it the way that he said. They responded, right? 5 minutes, they're there. The wife's happy. Everything happens the way that it's supposed to. And remember, there's still a response though, right? It's what we do whenever we go into organizations is, hey, how long does it take the law enforcement to get to your location once the alarm kicks off? Because that's what you have to plan against. So if I'm going to delay somebody from getting to whatever the asset is, I have to make sure that I understand what the response looks like. So that was great, Jake. Thank you for that. Will, what do you got, man? What kind of system are you working with?
So, excuse me. So I do have a roving German Shepherd dog, and she's pretty protective and definitely lets us know if a squirrel passes gas 50 meters away. But I do have ADT as my security system. The only reason I really got it is because it came with the house, so we just activated it. I don't think we hardly ever use it. It's got glass break, motion sensor, doors, all that good stuff on it, but we just don't turn it off that much because we do have dogs that are very protective. And my family that lives with me, they grew up in another country that has higher crime. So they are always locking the doors, which drives me nuts because I grew up out in the middle of nowhere where nobody locked their doors and you left your keys in your truck. And,
That's right.
But so we don't use it like we should, but it's there if I do need it.
Well, but I think there's a difference. Jake, you got a dog too, correct? Or not?
Yeah, you might hear my wife left her out in the backyard there, but and she's just like your German. I mean, she's a little Beagle Shepherd mix, and she'll let me know when the deer are walking around the fence.
This is a great conversation right now. So again, it goes back to you both have two things. You have a deterrent, right? So you have something at your house that somebody is going to think twice. So if you've ever had the opportunity from a law enforcement standpoint to talk to somebody about, why they didn't break into a house or why they didn't, well, first thing you're going to say is because they heard a dog barking and it doesn't matter if it's a yapper, as I call them, little small, cute dog. I mean, that's what I want. I'm a little puppy, but a little small dog or even a larger dog, most people are going to move on, right? There's just, I don't know what's on the other side of it. Nobody likes to get bit by dogs. So it's just like, it's not worth it. Right. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say along with that deterrent, you now have your own kind of response that's happening in the house, which is your dog. So you have that early alarm system, right? So you have a deterrent telling people to stay away. And then your dog, just like mine, if you're within 5 feet of this house, the dog barks, right? That immediately to me, it's like, oh, hey, is there somebody there? And there's also a difference between how my dog barks. If it's just like the, squirrel outside playing around, whatever, dog's just like, it's like a kind of a monotone kind of bark. If there's somebody there, the dog will go nuts. Like there is no question that there's somebody outside my house. So you have an early detection system. So the real question is, do you need an alarm system? Well, sure. I mean, there's still a reason to have that. There's still nighttime. Me is a good example. I have fans running around in my house. So, kind of talk about what I have. Same thing, dog, but at night I have fans running in my house. So it is going to be harder for the dog to hear that. But I also have my alarm system very much like Will and Jake here. Mine is kind of hodgepodge. I have different components that are kind of put together. I'm not worried about the top of my house because somebody is not going to crawl up my house. Trust me. I wouldn't even do it. And I'm not even scared of heights. So just because the way my land is, I'm kind of like on a hill. So it's much harder to get to my house. So I have the bottom floor is really where my alarm system is. So you have to come into those and it's just the windows and the doors. So I know if that goes off, then the dog's going to be on it. And additionally, we have the motion detecting, which you can get with Simply Safe and some of the others. We have motion detecting outside, motion detecting lights and things like that. Again, it's a deterrent. If you're near my house, nighttime, you step in, basically a big light comes on, tells you to move away. All of these things are good things to have in your house, but it does annoy people because obviously when you're trying to sleep at night, you get like this big bright light that, pops up in your house when you're trying to, well, I don't care, but the better half, as I call her, she does care. So that's good. I mean, I think this was a really good discussion. So thank you guys. So Will, kind of talk me through, from your perception. I mean, what is home security? I mean, what do you see it being? I mean, because we're already on the subject. I know we'd normally do news, but we're already here. So we might as well just run with it.
Okay. So to me, home security is taking care of your persons and your property, right? Your real property and your personal property and yourself. So you want to secure outer rings, inside out. I mean, depending on how you do it, inside out, outside in, whatever your train of thought is, right? So I know I go inside out is my inside secure. Okay. Then I start moving out as far as my home security. Obviously it's going to be something different when you're doing assessment, stuff like that, but that's how I do it. What about you, Jake?
So the same thing. So, going to ASIS and kind of what they recommend with, CPTED, the crime prevention through environmental design, exactly what you said, Will, going outside in and then looking at, what are your threats? First, what are you protecting? I would say majority of us, we're protecting our families and ourselves at our most vulnerable time, which is when we're sleeping or when we're away from the house. Going from the outside in, then looking at crime reports. I know we like to use Neighborhood Scout, which is a great tool. You're going to have to pay a small nominal fee to use their service, but it's a great tool that looks at crime in your area, not just crime that the police report, but crimes that have just been reported. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a police report has been filed. And so there's a big difference in that if the police have responded, it's going to show up. If the police have filed a report, that will show up as well, where other services are just going to kind of look at police reports that have been filed. So that's one thing I definitely tell, buddies of mine and people who ask, like Ray said in the beginning, we're not in the alarm, motion sensor cameras, business. We're looking at businesses and doing those security assessments for them. But, looking at that crime rate first is a good indicator for your home, your personal protection. And then you kind of go from there. So kind of like Ray said, I have the motion detectors. I have Simply Safe gave me a camera. I actually use it because I have a neighbor who's kind of a pest behind me. Doesn't like the new pool that I put in with my 3 little boys. So I just kind of keep it in the backyard, just so I can see, especially when I'm traveling, look at the pool, see what's going on, see if my better half's throwing a party while I'm not there. Stuff like that, Well,
we just loop it. Yeah, we're there. You just don't know we are. We just got it looped.
No, I know you're there because I can hear your voice, right? So just, looking at the outside. So looking at your neighborhood, like Ray was saying, look at your environment, your terrain features, everything with your home. Is it 2 stories, a single story? Do you live in an apartment complex? Are you in a gated community versus ungated community? So each individual is really unique when it comes, in my opinion, to home security and what they need, or, maybe what they need is different than what they want. And so understanding the 2 differences between those.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are all serious. What I did is I dug a moat, put some water in, and got a couple alligators out there, Fred and Bill. I don't really have a problem. Let me just say that. Now, it does kind of stink because I can't leave my house either, right? Like I didn't think about putting a bridge across it, so now I'm kind of screwed. But other than that, man, it works well. I don't have any issues here. Let me just say that. You both hit on it really well. To all jokes aside, you guys both hit on it very well. The most important thing, and Jake hit on it. Two important things. You got to know what you're protecting. Number one, like if you don't know that, then just like stop, because you're going to waste money. You're not going to do what you want to do. And it's not the same for everybody. That's the other important part. What I mean is, just because we all have family doesn't mean that we all need to protect those pieces of our family. Some of our family members are probably stronger or better fighters than we are. Like they can survive on their own. So that becomes the non-issue. It may be, it may be jewelry. It may be guns, like whatever it is, right? Like you look at those things, and it may be multiple things. It may not just be a single thing. So you got to do that. And then number 2, what Jake said, is research. Crime Spot, Neighborhood Scout, like it just goes on. With all of these locations, you can go, even your local police department, and you can go and you can look and you can see what kind of crime you have around your area. And then from that, you start to put in these layers as kind of what, Will was talking about. You start to layer it, close, and then you go wide. I choose to go wide, close, but either way is fine. Like it's not, it's not one way or the other. I just want to be as far away as possible if you can. Will lives on a quarter acre piece of land. It's harder for him to do what I do because I live on a much larger, probably piece of land than he does. So for me, I'm going to go further out because I want to make sure that I know that they're, again, police takes 5 minutes to get here. I want that alarm to happen 2.5 minutes because that's 2.5 minutes less I have to delay them. So it's just things like that to kind of think of. So I guess now, we're not always home. And I know, Jake, you kind of mentioned it, and I'll throw this one at you first. Have you done anything different now that we're in quarantine? Like, because we're at home now all the time. Has anything really changed for you from that perspective? You not traveling as much, you're home with the family from your perspective?
No, not really. I know that I kind of looked into, and I think kind of what kicked off some of this topic with us was us looking, at topics. And then I came across an article about some of these home security systems with getting people into their system, into work to monitor the systems. And so I haven't done a whole lot except for I've called Simply Safe and asked them, hey, are you guys monitoring? What's your response time? Yeah. And just verified that, they're still actively monitoring, knowing that they're probably affected by COVID as well. So I just recommend anyone with an alarm system just to call their provider and ask them, are they still providing the same service, or has their service been reduced a little bit due to people coming into work?
Yeah, no, that's good. Will, what about you? Have you changed anything on your side?
Not really inside. I work from home, so I'm here most of the time anyways.
Yeah.
So the only thing I've really done is I've had time to kind of trim the hedges and cut back some trees that were growing over, just kind of cleaning up the property so there's not as many hiding spots for people. But
yeah, Jake just texted me and said that, what did he say here? Working is really stretching it. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a... No, good. Yeah, I think that's, you both hit on really good points. I mean, there should really not be a change, right? I mean, the bottom line is you don't want people to know if you're home or not home anyway. So, the difference is, the way, what security you have in place, you would have. So right now there is a much larger concern about, just things in general. We're going to get some of the news here in a minute with, information security, the fact that there's a lot more attacks happening through Wi-Fi's and hotspots and like all these other things. Will, from your standpoint, what is your thoughts on smart homes right now? Right. I think I would have had a different thought a month ago, a month and a half ago before this thing started. And now kind of what's your thought process?
I kind of go back and forth because I do like the idea of being able to control everything with my voice or my phone, like convenience, right? At what point do you choose convenience over security? So I like the convenience of it. I like I'm kind of a gadget guy, so I like that aspect of it. But then I do have the conspiracy theory. Oh yeah. Are they listening in? Are they watching me? And there is obviously an opportunity, or there is the chance of somebody hacking into your home or to your Alexa or your Samsung TV or whatever TV you got, smart TV. There is that option or that opportunity for a bad guy to get in that way. So, I do have a few things, but I'm not total smart home. I know people who do have total smart homes where they just say lights on, turn it to temperature, blah, blah, blah. And they do everything to smart refrigerators, all that stuff. I don't think I'll ever get there, but I do like a few of the luxury items.
Okay. Yeah. And that's interesting. I mean, the smart home concept, if you need it, then use it, right? I think that's the best way to do it. Just put the protections in place appropriately to safeguard that system. And it's not much different than your home network. If you have a modem and 2 routers, you may want to check, right? Like you may want to pull one of those routers off and just look at your system. Not because it's a bad, but you're not getting as much stuff, or that's an attack route for somebody because only one of those systems connect, whatever the case may be. So I think you make a good point. Jake, from you, what do you believe the difference really is between a rural and an urban area security, right? Like somebody lives in like a city that maybe they live in an apartment, right? They live in an apartment building, something like that, versus somebody who's kind of out in the country. or lives somewhere where they may own an acre, 2 acres of land. Is there really a difference on what that security looks like, or what they should be doing?
I am unable to hear anything Ray is saying. So, Will, I can hear you, but I cannot hear Ray.
Okay, so he's asking you what the difference between a rural and urban area security. You know, let's say somebody who lives in an apartment complex in New York City versus somebody who's on a 50 acres out in Wyoming or something.
Oh, so yeah, two totally completely, different scenarios. So New York City, you're looking at a good portion of those apartment complexes have a doorman, elevators to get in and out of. So there's different levels that someone has to go through just to get into that apartment complex, usually in the city in those high rises. Normally they're using some kind of fob just to get into the front door, then a fob to access the elevator, and then of course their home keys to access their apartment. Now let's take that out to a rural setting where it's a dirt driveway and you're going to drive, let's say, a quarter mile just to get to someone else. Now, again, depending on the topography of that terrain and everything, it's going to be quite different. You may be able to, because of that standoff that you have in the rural area, you're going to have more time to potentially react if it's detected beforehand. So it goes down to really your detection system, both in the apartment in a urban sprawl area or out in the rural area, and there's definitely things that people can do in the rural area to fortify or secure, their home or their ranch, whatever it may be, ground sensors to motion detectors, video cameras that will alert, up to their TV or, whatever handheld device they have. So I got quite a few buddies who live on about 60 acres, and that's usually what they use, are those video cameras and those motion sensors to pick up when anyone's coming in and out or on their property. And usually most people with that, with acreage like that, have some type of domesticated animal, a dog or whatever that may alert them. So,
yeah, great. Okay. So I think, from our side, from my side, Will, when I think of the rural versus the urban, I think about the components of the house. You're coming into an apartment where somebody else owns it. It's not yours. Changing hardware, doing things separate or different to that building makes it a little bit harder, right? It's just a little bit harder to secure it easier than it would be if you own the property. I think to me, that's the first step. So if somebody else owns it, same thing going into a hotel. And I know we do a lot of security courses like around this. How do I better protect myself, protect my family based off the security pieces that I have, and then hardening doors the appropriate way. So hardening your home door, $100, you can harden it and make it really, really hard to get through that door. I mean, they would literally have to punch a hole through it to get into it by just adding just a little bit around the frame and some other pieces. Like literally it is that easy to do. Most people don't know that. A little bit harder when you're in an apartment because somebody else owns it. Now, you have to look at that. I also think that there's a sense of security that happens at inside of an apartment building and things like that, where you have these chains and locks and stuff like that. And you also probably don't take as much time because you don't own it to like research to make sure that the property that you're on is safe and the area that you're in is as safe as you want. You may do it on the front side. As a good example, the first house that I moved into it, man, it was a great house. Loved it. Probably within 2 years, I realized very quickly that location was not as safe as it once was. Like it just, that environment changed, and we made that option to move into an area where you have to come through security to get into our neighborhood. It's a little bit different. Does that mean the security here is perfect? No, it just means that we made that choice for our family. So to me, I think that's the big difference. The other thing I think that's important between those two is the further you live away from a city, the longer the reaction time is of law enforcement. Yep. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a reality. If when you're inside of a city, you're normally going to have your city law enforcement folks. You're going to have your county, depending if, the county's inside of that. And then you're going to have every once in a while you have the state. So you got kind of three three law enforcement departments, and Will, I know, spent a lot of time in this space. You got kind of three folks you can kind of depend on to get there. City's always going to have more folks, always. They just are. County, your sheriff, stuff like that, they're going to have, a smaller department. It's going to depend on how large of an area it is, and then also really how many folks live in that county. So for me, I live in a county. We do have kind of a built-up area here, but I'm still in a county. I don't have a city. So I know if we call law enforcement, unless something bad is happening to me, they're not coming. Like, it's just, they're going to wait until the next day. They'll come out, they'll take a report, whatever. But I know that they're probably not going to come for at least a day or so. So I think it's important to kind of again, it comes back into that full circle. So Will, I don't know what you think from your perspective, if there's any additional insight from being a law enforcement professional, being in the city, if there's anything else that you think would be impactful for folks to know.
Well, and like you said, in the city, a lot of times the response time's a lot faster. Like, I live in a pretty populated area compared to you guys, but it's not incorporated. So technically the county covers me. That's right. If something happens, it's going to take 15, 20 minutes if I'm lucky for them to respond, unless they happen to be right here. But if they're on the call on the other side of the county, it's going to take a while.
Unless you got coffee. If you got coffee, they're going to respond. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it's good to know who your responding agencies are and kind of how long it's going to take them. Also, a lot of times in cities, you're going to have neighborhood watches. The community's a lot it's good, more densely populated, so they're going to have more eyes out there, right? And they talk more. I know, like in the neighborhood I live in, even though we're in the county, we still have neighborhood watches where you have our little Facebook pages where everybody goes on and like, hey, do you see this? Do you see this? We have no soliciting in our neighborhood. So if anybody comes in, there's probably 2 or 3 little bitty bodies who are going to be on Facebook talking about, hey, this person's out here, watch out. What are they doing? Yeah. So it's always, even though those neighbors are kind of, they are what they are, but a lot of times they are good for you security wise, right? Because they're watching, they're paying attention, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, Will. The neighborhood watch programs, and those are more in that urban area outside of the major metropolitan area, like your downtowns, your New York Cities, your Dallases, your downtown areas. And I think it's a different mindset. You're probably going to see more homeless people, more people that, are suffering through, whether it's, drugs or some mental illness. And I think growing up in a city large like that, you just dismiss people. You might see some guy running around grabbing something and you're just, whatever, that guy's just crazy. Or if you did that in probably Ray's neighborhood, my neighborhood, your neighborhood, people are going to see that and they're going to call the cops. Or in metropolitan, that city, it's just, that's normal everyday life. And I think that's kind of hard for the people living in those super metropolitan areas is this guy just crazy, or is this guy really a threat, or did he just do something?
That's right. Well, you still keep the see something, report something mentality. Like I think honestly, Department of Homeland Security, when that kind of came out, the government said that, I was like, man, that's such an easy slogan. I know people like to make fun of it, but it is honestly, it's the best slogan ever. And if people would just use it, right? And I think the other thing is, don't just think about your security, think about others around you, because even though they may not mess with you, they're probably going to mess with, if it just doesn't feel right, get the spider senses, I call it, in your stomach, then you probably need to report it, right? Like, I mean, I would just make that determination and make that part of what you do. So I really want to move into, continue on the conversation with the home security piece. And for me, I have a very clear choice here with the next question, but I want to throw it to Will. I'm sure Will throw it to Jake, and then I'll take a stab at this thing. But for anybody that's listening, hopefully you're here because, oh man, we're going to talk about home security systems. So we're going to get in a little bit more of that. We've talked, around all the other things you need to think about. We're not telling you to buy one. That's the other thing. You need to research. You need, like, all those things we've already discussed, you need to do first before you're spending your money on this. That's number one. Once you've done all that and you realize, yes, I want one. Okay, I want to move towards this. We're not going to give you the type today, but we're going to talk through some of the things you should look at when you go to start kind of talking through that process. So, Will, here's the question. So you get an opportunity. I know the wife controls your bank account, right? So, I mean, I don't even know how you get that foo-foo coffee, but, because you ain't got no money, I'll tell you that much.
What's mine is hers, and what's hers is hers. Yep.
Yeah. Obviously, she's not in the room. Anyway, So if you had a choice, wireless versus wired, and then how do you create this thing? What is your system? What would you want your system to look like if you were to build it? Money not being, money not being an issue, and then money being an issue. So kind of both sides.
So if I could build it from start with money not an issue, I'd have top of the line security cameras.
So you'd have Ray standing there. Yeah, top of the line. I got it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you standing guard like 23 and a half hours a day. That way you get a lunch break.
You're so generous. And, hey, I could get some of your, whatever, your Guatemalan foo-foo, pinkies up coffee.
The medium roast. Yeah. Okay.
That'd be you'd probably give me dark roast just because that's you.
I would.
Here, you got to stay up another 23 hours. Here's dark roast.
Well,
Go.
Technically light roast has more caffeine, but whatever.
Okay. Well, just beat your boots, Will.
All right. So anyways, I'd have top of the line, equipment, obviously. I would have it set up to motion sensors, heat, infrared, heat sensors, whatever you want to call it.
Lasers.
Lasers. Yes. Sharks with lasers. Let me see. What else would I do? I'd have it set up so if somebody did cut the power or whatever, the phone lines, most stuff's not attached to phone lines anymore. But if you did have that, it'd automatically alert the security. So honestly, if I had all the money in the world, I didn't have to worry about it. I'd probably have my own security detail at the house, and I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I'd hire guys like you and come take care of it. And
well, really, it's law enforcement because they have jurisdiction. So get a bunch of beefy law enforcement guys to hang out and be like, hey, man, all the Guatemalan coffee you want, protect El Jefe.
See, I know what the guys like right around here. I wouldn't be giving coffee, be a little something, a little more oomph to it, but
Oh, I got so water.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit of barley and hops mixed
perfect.
But now, if I didn't have money, I would invest in your lock system, your locks, your stuff as simple as locking your windows. A lot of people don't do that. It's nice right now. It's great weather out, right? You open your window at night, sleep with the window open. You close it before you leave work, and you forget to lock it. So something as simple as just making sure you're locking your windows has a lot of deterrent. It's unbelievable how many calls I would take that people would break into somebody's cars, but it was just because the cars were unlocked. People just walk by. They're going to take the path of least resistance. So if you don't have a lot of money, just doing the simple things, locking your car, you locking your cars, locking your windows, locking your doors, something as simple as that, leaving a light on, rotating, all that good stuff. Stuff like that's just a deterrent by itself.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jake? What would you do?
Well, given where I live now, I probably wouldn't change a whole lot, honestly. I mean, I don't even use the system as it should. Now, if I was in a higher threat area, I would definitely, I'd use that alarm system all the time. I would more than likely put motion detectors. I have them on the outside of my house, but on the inside, and with motion detectors, knowing that, hey, the angle that you put them, if you have dogs or fans and doors that open and close, keeping that in mind when you're putting the motion detector in. But honestly, I probably wouldn't do a whole lot different than what I have now, just because I live, and I'm saying that now, knocking on wood, in a pretty safe, secure area. But that can all change. That could change here in a month when everyone is struggling to find work, and things may get a little worse. And if it does get worse, then I guess for me, I would probably put up a fence on my front yard. That just delay them a little bit more, and put a motion detector and a sensor there on the fence that would alert me, and then with the lights and the camera system, and then I'd probably use that stimulus check whenever that thing comes to buy some more shotguns and pistols.
Well, good. Well, let me tell you my thoughts on this. Will, I think I have multiple directions I could go with this, because I think it all depends. I picked the area that I picked on purpose, right? So I did my research. I know where I live. I know what the crime is. Even in the current situation, I still know that the area that we're in is a pretty good area. So would I make a lot of different changes? I don't think so. It would still be the same in most respects. I don't think just because there's a choosing that system, I try to choose the system that makes the most sense. If you're going to choose a system, so I guess I'm all over the place right now. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, then what I would tell you is go through kind of what Will's done, right? Go through your CPIs, your ADTs, some of the ones that already have a system in place, because they're going to be able to give you that system. Yes, you're going to have to sign a contract, but it's a system that's monitored. It's one where they're going to fix, like, you don't really have to do anything, right? They're going to come in, they're going to install it, they're going to take care of everything for you. Just make sure that when you do that, you test the system with them before they leave. Meaning, do not just let them come in, put the system in, walk out the door. I mean, you've done no assessment of it. You have no idea if the thing works. And it's just as simple as them turning on the different pieces of it, walking out of the house, walking back in. Does things go off? Does the alarm go off? That's the stuff you want to test. Okay. So that would be if you're on the lower end of, yes, I need something, I would tell you to do that. On the higher end, again, it just goes back to what we've been talking about this entire show. What is your true risk? I mean, what are the assets you're protecting? What's your risk, threats, and vulnerabilities? What do all the websites look like, or all the places you've researched? What does law enforcement say locally? How long's response time? And then from that, put in the system that makes the most sense. What I would tell you, everybody that's listening to this podcast, if you have not hardened your doors, you need to immediately. I don't care where you live. It's easy. It doesn't cost much. You literally could go to Lowe's. You can't really go to Lowe's, but we will figure out a way to provide you the details for that, because it's such an easy fix that it's like $64 per door. There's only really 2 or 3 doors in your house you have to worry about, which is usually your front door and then your back door. I don't care if you have 2 doors that open up at the same. They have kits for that as well. And doing that alone, somebody can't come and just 2-foot kick your door and it's gonna swing open. They're gonna be out there a while kicking on the thing, trying to get it open. Jake brought up a good thing with the windows, and or Will actually, lock them, do the right thing. With windows, it's like thefts. I remember responding to folks with somebody broken into their car. The very first question is, you're like, okay, hey, and you go there looking at the windows. You're like, oh, well, nothing's broke. Hey man, did you have your door locked? Oh no, man, this is where I work. Okay, well, what do you want me to do? Like, you left the window open, man. I can't, really can't do anything. If you had locked your window, then we probably could do something. So I think for me, that would be the thing. Use a system to keep the cost down. Put stuff on your current house, current windows, stuff like that. And then the other part, I think, is like looking at the, building the right system based off the threats that exist. And I think that's the only way that I would do it, Will.
Yeah,
from my standpoint. Okay. Well, I think that from a house standpoint, it's a good conversation. Did we give you all the answers? We gave you a lot. That's for sure. I promise you that. If you listen to the podcast probably 2 or 3 times, you're going to get all kinds of different nuggets out of this thing. Don't spend a lot of money just to spend money. I can try to do the best we can to save you that. What I'd love to do is to get into the news. Will, I'd appreciate it if you'd grab a hold of this one. Give us one of yours. Let's pass it to Jake, and then you take the next one and then pass it back to me. I'm just interested to see what the articles of the day are for everybody.
Okay, so we're going to start with the articles of the day. The first article I got was talking about a glitch may have exposed data of thousands of small businesses applying for federal relief loans.
Yeah. Huh?
So apparently what happened is, if you were filling out your information and you got to a certain point and you went back instead of submitting, they were showing up other businesses' information to you. So they've notified nearly 8,000 applicants of the economic injury disaster loan program. They've notified them. So if you did come up, they let you know that your information was possibly exposed to somebody. But it's just, something is, they're supposed to know, right? I mean,
yeah,
you go in there assuming that you can trust and your information to this. So it just shows you, that not everybody, even something as high tech as the government, whatever, there are vulnerabilities to it. So
that's right. Well, that goes back to the Q&A, right? That's the biggest thing. It's all development you do, all application development, anything else. If you don't have somebody doing that quality assurance or doing kind of that white side testing for you, you may miss something. So that's cool. Yeah. Well, let me just talk about mine real quick, and then Will, you take it and then pass it to Jake. Makes sense?
Yep.
So mine is Skype. Again, same thing. Phishing campaigns. For those who know, phishing, whaling, there's so many different names. Now you get on text messages and all kinds of locations. But here's the thing: if you get an email that you don't know who it is, And even if you think you know who it is, don't click the link. Just don't click the link. Like that's the most important part. Will actually sent me something on our internal network the other day, and I told him I am not clicking that link. I'm not doing it, man.
Safe.
I don't know what it is. I don't care. It was weird. I mean, the way the email came to me and I looked at it, I was like, Will's never sent me a video before. I am not clicking, right? Like that's, and what did I do? I went to you, Will, and I said, hey, man, just want to make sure you sent me this. And Jake was in that call as well. And Jake was like, yeah, man, hey, I watched it. It was cool. But then I was like, Jake, why'd you click it, man? That looked weird. You shouldn't click it. But I knew they had already talked. So I think the thing here for me is like, ask somebody first before you click these links. Again, this whole Skype thing, it's another example of somebody targeting Skype passwords. They're sending really good emails that look exactly like they came from Skype. I mean, everything about it, but there's going to be little pieces that won't make sense, meaning that like the email address would be, skype1.com or something very similar to that, which is really easy to catch, or even the date, misspelled words, all of these things. But the best advice we can continue to give, don't click links you get in emails. Just don't click it. Reach out to them directly and ask them, hey, did you send this to me, before you do anything? And even if they say they did, still don't do it. So as an example, I just got to bring one other example. I had a Better Business Bureau call me the other day about, about becoming part of the system for that. That dude started asking me questions and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable answering these questions, right? And I told him, hey, I need you to send me an email from your email for the Better Business Bureau. And then I also need you to link me to where it shows you are an employee. And I said, listen, man, I'm part of a security company. I just want to make sure, because the questions you're asking me, I just don't feel comfortable giving you. And I know that seems weird. And he didn't get offended. That's how I know that it's okay. He's like, oh no, hey, I completely get it. Let me send this off to you and get that. So people aren't going to get offended as long as you tell them you're trying to do it for the right reasons. You know what I mean? So Will, I don't know what you think about that and whatever your next article is.
Oh, I definitely agree. If you don't know what it is, when they're those phishing, smishing campaigns, if you don't know who it is or what it's sent you got to be careful. I know one thing I do. I don't know. It works for me. If I get something that I'm some Amazon or whatever, I'm like, I don't know. This doesn't look quite right. I'll go to the sender email and I'll kind of click on that. Like I'm going to send them an email. A lot of times it'll be at like 123ZXYZ, blah, 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 instead of Amazon support or whatever. Right. So something as simple as that. Not that I would click on it, because most of the stuff I just throw away. I don't even open. But if there is something questionable, a lot of times I'll look at the email just to kind of see who it came from, to see if it's a legitimate sounding or looking email address.
Or you could do what I do to Jake's emails. I literally take those and have them going straight to the trash. That's just another
all Jake's emails in the trash.
All of them. Yeah, they just all go to the trash bin. That just makes it so much easier. Sorry, but go ahead, Will.
Jake, do you have a article to share with us? You got an article to share with us?
Yeah, so for this week, it's not really, so it is security related, world security related. So, Kim Jong-un and the whereabouts and his health. So it was kind of twofold. So it was that, and then President Trump issuing the Navy to now, defend themselves in the Persian Gulf there with the Iranian fast boat. So to me, two very important, potentially dangerous, high-risk poker, I would call it. Kim Jong-un, there's nothing you can do. It is what it is. We'll just have the U.S. and the global powers that be are just going to have to wait to see if the fallout is, if he is alive, or if he's not, who's the successor going to be. And then, what kind of transition is going to happen in North Korea that could really affect us, especially with everything with COVID and everything going on right now with our military and just our economy at home. And then, with Iran, is this going to provoke something even more? And could it potentially lead to, another major conflict there in the Middle East? So, two news stories that kind of broke, middle of the week that, potentially could have some severe consequences here at home.
No, I think those are, I think those are two, Jake, those are brilliant. I mean, both of them have, like, especially right now, everything going on with COVID-19 and this feel that we're a recession and a depression and like all of that stuff going on. There's definitely a little bit of an up that's going, because I also read, along with those two things, there was also another article about North Korea, a lot more activity coming from that. So I think all of these kind of lead into that. Don't let security, and listen, I know the government's doing their part, right? Like there's no question in my mind that the men and women of the armed forces are doing what they need to do to protect the company or the country and everybody in the government. Bottom line, like there's no question that it's happening. I just hate that it's happening at a time like this. I think the entire process here, we're gonna have to see how this all plays out. Losing a dictator can absolutely have grave consequences depending on who steps in and kind of what that looks like. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that probably a little bit more here over the next couple of weeks. Oh, yeah. One last thing I want to say, Will, with mine is for anybody that has an iOS device or an Apple device. And right now we are in, what are we in, April yep. 2020. So April 2020, researchers say that there's 2 Apple iOS 0-day security vulnerabilities right now that are affecting the Mail app for iPhones and iPads. So if you use the Mail app, that's the one that comes with it, not one you download, but one that comes with the system. Know that there is obviously 2 0-day security vulnerabilities, and they're working through to patch those right now. But basically, the attack scope consists of sending a specifically crafted email. Here we go again with sending emails to a victim's mailbox, enabling it to trigger the vulnerability in the context of iOS mobile mail application on iOS 12 and Mail ID on iOS 13. So that's kind of what it looks like. So if you're using those, just understand that it's happening. If you're in a business environment, you should be using whatever that business uses. So if they use Google, then you use the Google Gmail application. If you're in Outlook or Microsoft, you should be using the Outlook.com system. Try not to use your Apple for business, bottom line. If it's your personal, it's fine. Like, again, it's as long as you're not, doing business in there, your personal information, stuff like that, I'm sure that they're going to patch it here soon and all of that. But if you don't have to use it, don't use it. So, Will, I don't know what you think about that, and if you have a last article for today.
Well, that was actually going to be one of my articles.
Oh,
luckily, I have another one. So I come prepared.
Yeah, well, that's luck. Whatever.
Yeah, luck. So I don't know if you had heard. Now, this one's not necessarily security related, but anger in China as Germany sends $160 billion damage invoice to them.
I did see that.
So, essentially Germany sent them a bill for everything that's cost them to react to the COVID-19, because according to them, according to them and numerous other countries, including our own, have indicated that China was not very forthcoming in the early stages of COVID-19. They didn't do what they should have done to restrict travel and protect others against the spread of COVID-19. So it would surprise me to see other countries kind of follow suit.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of it though? Like, what's your take on it?
I think it's funny. I think it's just, I think it's kind of funny, but I don't really think that they're going to get any traction out of it. I mean, it's going to be very hard to. Now, if you can somehow show that China acted in a malicious way to let this come out to destabilize, which has been floated in some theories, then you might be able to get them on the world court, but you're not going to, I don't see China repaying anybody for anything. So.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, what would we do? What would we do if somebody sent us a bill for something like this? I mean, there is something that should be said about, were they honest with the facts? That I think that's a bigger issue. Yep. And it's too late now, right? Like right now we just need to be figuring about how to stop because it's affecting so many small businesses and everything else. And am I pro or against what's happening right now? Well, again, it's like, we started this entire conversation when all this began. We talked about it's not really just about me. It's about those around me and my family and everybody else. Like, I want everybody to be safe. I don't want to be the person that's carrying this thing around, just handing it off to people, man. I'm not okay with that. So, and even if they open up small businesses right now, sure, you're probably going to make a little bit of money, but you're still going to have a whole bunch of people like me that just, I don't want to put people in a bad spot, Not saying it's right or wrong. And that's the great part of America is we get to have our own opinions, right? Of kind of what we look. I don't want to be in my house anymore. I'm a people person. I want to be out in front of people, but I care about people in general. I don't want to be the person that's, it's kind of handing this thing off. So I think that's an interesting article to kind of see where this leads over the next couple months, man, as we continue to be in lockdown ourselves here until May now, as was just put out by the North Carolina governor, which again, I'm not fighting it. It is what it is. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that. I mean, do you from your seat, Will, should we still be where we're at today?
I go back and forth because, like you, I don't want to be the one who's responsible for somebody else dying because they catch COVID. Yeah. But then on the other hand, I do think that's been kind of over. I don't know. I go back and forth. Yeah, it's bad, yes, but is it as bad as they say it is? Because there's a lot of, not everybody's being tested. So do we really know how many cases are actually out there? And so I just kind of. I don't know. One thing I have noticed is that a few of us need some Just for Men for our beards.
No, I refuse. Let it get gray. This is from you. Like when Jake worked with me, man, I didn't have that problem.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was perfect, man. As soon as you came on the
10
team,
years ago.
It's like, what's happened here? So I would say this. Here's my thing, because I want you to ask this question of Jake, right? Because I know Jake's having problems hearing me. I
can actually hear you now, but I lost Will.
Oh. Perfect. Okay. Well, this is great then. So what we're talking about right now is, do we think that we should still be in lockdown based off of COVID-19, right? And my entire thing right now is this: if we had a cure, if we had an ability to, to be better at what we're doing right now, or a way to kind of stop this from happening, I think that there's a good opportunity for us not to be in quarantine, right? Like we don't have a reason to be in quarantine, but there isn't that. Where with the flu, man, yeah, I get it, man. I get the flu. Just like I can catch this thing and I probably, whatever. I don't even know what the percentage is, and that's the problem. Nobody knows the real facts. Yep. But all I know is I'm watching medical professionals, which I've never seen with the flu. I've never seen the flu where medical professionals are like, hey, seriously, quit going outside. But every single time I see a medical professional, they're all saying the same thing. And that's nurses, that's doctors, that's people on the front lines, man. Yeah. So it's hard for me to believe that I shouldn't listen to them. Like, it's not even about the government at this point. It's the fact that the people that are at the lowest level are telling me that I shouldn't. So I don't know what you think, Jake, about that from your perspective.
So I agree with you with the medical professionals, right? I think the biggest thing is it's fear.
Yeah.
No one knows what's really going on. And so, at first this was dismissed when it first came out in January, that, it's not that big of a deal, kind of was the vibe that was going on, and we'll be all right. And then it kind of hit. And I think people overall just need to be patient with each other, listen to the medical professionals. They don't fully understand this yet. And so they're doing the best they can, and they are the subject matter experts on this. And I also think, there's that. So that's one side of the coin. The other side is, our economy and everything else is significantly damaged by this. Yeah. I think staying home, honestly, my life hasn't been affected all that much by it. So the staying at home part, I think for guys like us, I don't want to be around people anyway. So that's good.
It's just Will. It's just Will for me. Like everybody else, I don't mind being around, but him, it's like
I don't think there's the answer isn't there yet. And so for the protesters, right? I got quite a laugh of the protester yelling at the nurse or the doctor that's standing on the sidewalk blocking the vehicle. And honestly, it's that tit for tat kind of thing going on. Like if I think people just need to be a little bit more understanding and a little more. Look, if you don't want to go out, don't go out. Stay at home, have your groceries delivered, have everything delivered, and be there. Those who want to go out, know that you're taking a risk, and also don't be that person now when you do get COVID or you are deathly sick, being that guy crying in the ER are in the hospital of like, give me a bed, give me, whatever medicine, whatever it needs, because it's kind of like you're playing Russian roulette, to a degree. Maybe not the same severity, but you may get it. Who knows? We may have had it. All my travel in and out of Atlanta, I was in LA, like a month ago. We could have it. We just don't know yet. So I think everyone just kind of needs to hit the pause button. I guess what I would personally like to see is our economy getting back and running. And I guess let those people want to go out, let them go out. But they have to know the risks that they're taking, and that, hey, small little towns like my town, we have a great hospital, but that hospital could be overran really quickly. I mean, my little town, we made national news with one of the nursing homes. I think 60 some odd people ended up getting COVID, and it all happened within 3 days. I live in a super retirement elderly population. And so, I try to keep my distance. I mean, I go to physical therapy, and, I might run here or there, but, again, that's on me, and I understand the risk. And I wouldn't be that guy showing up to the hospital like, hey, give me this, give me that. So I wonder if those same people are out protesting are the same people who are going to protest. And I guess it's about them. And we live in a global society, not just global, but just a community, being a good member.
Yeah.
So I tell everyone, hey, don't give up your rights. Know that your rights are there as a U.S. citizen. But also be respectful too, and understand that's not just your little world that we're all living in.
Yeah, and I know next week, like when we have Mike on the show, I mean, this is definitely going to be one, because we're gonna continue it right now. Like I want to have the entire episode. Like I just want to start over and start talking about this, because it just drives me in so many different directions. One, partly because we're all in business together, like all three of us that are here, and we don't have the ability to do what I would call our primary job, right? Which, so I think this is a great conversation to pick up next week. And I know Will, they have a, kind of cupcake based business, or a business around, we'll call sweets, because I'm sure there's a lot more than just that's very personal based, where people come in and they buy things. But, what have they done? Have they transitioned to online? Is there and I do woodworking off to the side. So there's all of these things that, you have the option to sit static, and just kind of be where you are, or try to find ways to better society and continue to kind of move forward. And I want to get in that conversation, especially with Mike, because Mike's a good example of this, because I know we all have our side hustles, as we'll call it, that I think will be a really good conversation for next week. And maybe from our perspective, and, just the security side, because security is such a touch people, especially what we do, because not what we do isn't so much of a networking or online based thing. It is like we touch people. Maybe we can help others, not inappropriately, Will. I see what you're doing there. But I knew as soon as I said, only the cop would do that, right? No, the military guy would do that as well. But, so now I don't know which one of them was. Was it the police officer, or was it the military guy that was laughing at that? But I think for me, it's like, I think we may be able to help others with this, based off what we're doing, personally. What are we doing to impact this from our side? So I think we can chat about that a little bit this week. You guys got anything to add? Any last nuggets other than the colors on Will that he's wearing right now? UNC, I'm digging it. I like this.
It's definitely not UNC, but yeah.
No, it's definitely UNC. Whatever.
The color of my eyes out.
Yeah. Hey, Tar Heels. Oh, hold on. Well, I didn't say it right for you. Tar Heels. Huh. Is that better?
Okay.
He was an Army guy. He knows what it is. I don't even know why he's trying to say it. All right, everybody. Well, as always, thank you for episode 8. Thank you for everybody that has been listening to the podcast. If you made it this far and you're still listening, it's because you're a rock star, right? Because you really care about what we're saying. And maybe you don't. Maybe you're just bored. You have nothing else to do, and you just want to listen to Jake's voice, and that's okay too. We are going to be making some minor changes, which is going to be good. One of the things we're trying to do is innovate and come up with new ideas. And Will has been great, leading us down that path. So we're trying to look at ways to get the episodes out quicker for some folks. We don't know how that's going to look yet, but that'll be for a very select few folks that will come in. And then we'll also find ways to advertise small businesses and other stuff for people in general. So all of that's coming. We want you to continue to stay connected with us. Not only here, you can get this podcast on all of your big ones. Where's it at, Will? It's in Apple. Where's all the locations?
Apple, Google, like pretty much every podcast carrier out there. If you do us a favor, follow us on Facebook. Go to Coffee Squad Podcast or Security Matters with the Coffee Squad. It should come up either way. Follow us. Let us know you're out there listening. Shoot us some questions or whatever you got for us. Let us know. I know we had somebody give us some ideas this week, so that was good. We appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah. And we're going to use them. And then the other thing, Twitter will be up soon. So we'll have that up as well. The last piece, we're going to be pulling in a whole bunch of pieces. We do, we really care about security. Like, we love this thing. I mean, that's obviously why we do this podcast. And this podcast kind of goes back and forth. We always try to integrate security into it because everything you do in life has something to do with security. But I'm really excited to see kind of where Will takes this stuff with some of our training courses that we already do online. And then we're going to start doing some really cool webinars. And the podcast, I think even Will's talking about that we may start recording that in video so that we can also put that on YouTube for folks or other places. So really excited to see where this goes, but we want you to get involved. Send us notes, send us, follow us Facebook, all that kind of stuff. Hit us up on Twitter. Give us reasons or things to talk about. So any last things from you guys?
Stay safe. Keep it up.
No, thank you. Thank you, everyone who's listening. Have a great weekend.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. This is Ray, Will, and Jake signing off.
See ya.
Peace out.